Daniel was cleaning tables in the empty cafe when Kanya's phone buzzed on the counter. She was in the back preparing ingredients for tomorrow's lunch service. The screen lit up with a message preview in English. "I sent the money, baby. When can I come visit you?" The sender's name was Mike, with an American flag emoji. Daniel stared at the phone. Mike! He didn't know any Mike. Kanya had never mentioned a Mike. His hands moved before his mind could stop them. He picked up the phone and opened the message thread. What he found was months of conversations. Sweet messages, promises, requests for money that Mike had apparently been sending regularly. Photos of Kanya that Daniel recognized the same photos she had sent him when he was still in Austin, before he sold everything to come here. Messages about her sick father, about family debt, about dreams of opening a small business, the same stories she had told Daniel, the same needs he had been funding for 8 months. Mike wasn't the only one. There was another thread, James from England, and another someone named Anders with a Swedish flag. All of them sending money, all of them receiving the same affectionate messages, the same promises, the same photos. The cafe around him, the cafe he had funded with $20,000 of his savings, the cafe with Kanya's name on the lease because foreigners couldn't own businesses. The cafe that was supposed to be their future together suddenly felt like a stage set, a prop in a performance he had paid to believe was real. Outside, Hua Hin's evening descended softly. Tourists walking the beach, other foreigners with their Thai girlfriends holding hands, all of them believing what Daniel had believed until 30 seconds ago, that their situation was special, that their love was different, that the woman beside them had chosen them for who they were rather than what they could provide. Daniel stood holding Kanya's phone, feeling 8 months of his life rewrite themselves in his memory. Every tender moment revealed as calculation, every declaration of love exposed as professional skill, every belief about starting over in Thailand at 52 dissolving into the recognition that he had been trapped not by bars or brothels, but by something softer and therefore more devastating. A waitress who had learned to monetize loneliness by performing exactly the kind of love that lonely men like Daniel desperately needed to believe was real. This is the story of how he got there. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. Daniel Harris's last day at his restaurant started the same as every other day for 23 years. Alarm at 4:30 a.m., drive through dark Austin streets, unlock the back door of Harris Family Kitchen, begin prep work before the morning staff arrived. But on this particular Tuesday, standing in the walk-in cooler doing inventory, Daniel felt something crack inside his chest that had nothing to do with his heart and everything to do with his will to continue. He was 52 years old. He had built this restaurant from nothing, had created a neighborhood institution that people loved, had employed dozens of people over 2 decades, had sacrificed his marriage and relationship with his daughter for early mornings and late nights and the endless grinding routine of restaurant management. And standing in the cold, holding a clipboard, counting egg cartons, he realized he couldn't do it another day. His divorce from Karen had finalized 6 months earlier, a quiet ending to a marriage that had died years before anyone acknowledged it. They had worked together, lived together, built a business together, but somewhere in the midst of health inspections and payroll and broken equipment and demanding customers, they had forgotten to stay married to each other rather than to the restaurant. Karen got the house. Daniel kept the restaurant. It seemed fair until he realized the restaurant was both his asset and his prison, that keeping it meant continuing to show up every morning at 4:30, that he couldn't escape without selling, and selling felt like admitting failure. But standing in the walk-in cooler on that Tuesday morning, Daniel decided failure was preferable to this. He walked out of the cooler, called his manager, said he needed to talk about selling the business, and felt relief flood through him despite knowing he was about to dismantle everything he had spent his adult life building. The sale took 3 months. He sold for less than the business was worth because he needed out quickly, because staying longer felt like drowning. After the sale, after paying off debts and splitting what remained with Karen per their divorce agreement, Daniel had $98,000, his entire life reduced to a number that was simultaneously significant and completely inadequate for American retirement. His daughter Emma called from Seattle when she heard about the sale. She was concerned, asked what his plan was, suggested he invest the money carefully, find a small apartment, maybe do consulting work for other restaurants. Her concern was genuine, but felt like judgment. Why was her father giving up? Why couldn't he just keep going like normal people did? Why was he acting like 52 was old? Daniel didn't know how to explain that he wasn't acting like 52 was old. He was acknowledging that 52 without purpose, without partnership, without anything to wake up for except routine, felt like death. He needed something to want. And he had spent too many years wanting nothing except to get through another day. Thailand appeared through an online forum for divorced men. Someone posted about starting over in Southeast Asia, about low cost of living and warm culture, and the possibility of finding partners who valued stability over status. Daniel started researching, reading expat blogs, watching YouTube videos of Western men who claimed they had rebuilt their lives in Thailand, who posted photos with Thai women and talked about genuine connection and simple happiness. The more he researched, the more Thailand felt like answer to questions he couldn't articulate. Not the bars and brothels of Pattaya, he had no interest in that explicit transaction, but the smaller cities, the beach towns where expats lived quietly, where authentic relationships were supposedly possible, where his savings could last longer and his loneliness might find different forms of relief. 3 months after selling the restaurant, Daniel boarded a plane to Bangkok with 2 suitcases, a 60-day tourist visa, and $50,000 in accessible funds, half his money, the rest kept in US investments as safety net. He told Emma he was taking an extended vacation, needed time to figure out what came next, would be back in a few months. He didn't tell her he had no intention of coming back, that he was done with Austin and everything it represented, that he was 52 and gambling his remaining money on the possibility that somewhere in Thailand he might find a reason to care about being alive. Daniel chose Hua Hin specifically because it wasn't Pattaya or Bangkok. The beach town south of the capital felt calmer, less explicitly commercial, popular with Thai families and retirees rather than sex tourists. He rented a small apartment near the beach for 8,000 baht monthly, about $240, and spent his first weeks exploring, eating at local restaurants, walking the beach at sunset, trying to convince himself this decision had been wise rather than desperate. The loneliness in Thailand felt different from loneliness in Austin, but was still loneliness. He was surrounded by people, but couldn't speak their language, couldn't decode their social interactions, existed as permanent outsider even in casual encounters. Other foreign men he saw seemed to have Thai girlfriends or wives, seemed to have figured out something Daniel hadn't yet understood about how to bridge the gap between foreign loneliness and Thai companionship. He found the cafe by accident, walking side streets away from the main beach road. It was small, 6 tables, simple menu focused on Thai breakfast foods and coffee, staffed by a young woman who smiled when he entered and gestured toward a table near the window. The place was called Sunshine Cafe, in English and Thai script, decorated with plants and photos of Thai countryside that made it feel less commercial than beachfront tourist traps. The waitress who took his order was young, mid-20s. Daniel guessed with a gentle demeanor and shy smile. Her English was limited but functional. She asked if this was his first time at the cafe, where he was from, how long he was staying in Hua Hin, standard questions. But she asked them with attention that felt genuine, waiting for his answers rather than moving quickly to the next table. Her name tag said Kanya. When Daniel's food arrived, cow tom, rice soup with pork and ginger, she explained in careful English how to add the condiments, seemed pleased when he understood, checked on him twice during the meal to ensure everything was okay. Daniel returned the next morning. And the morning after that, by his fourth visit, Kanya recognized him immediately, brought him hautam without needing to ask, remembered he liked his coffee with milk and sugar. This attention, this being remembered, being expected, felt significant in ways Daniel knew were probably pathetic, but couldn't help valuing anyway. On his sixth visit, the cafe was empty during late morning lull. Kanya sat at his table without being invited, something she hadn't done before. She asked him more questions. What did he do in America? Did he have family? What brought him to Thailand? Daniel found himself talking more than he had planned, telling her about his restaurant, his divorce, his sense of starting over. She listened with focused attention, asked follow-up questions, made sympathetic sounds at appropriate moments. When Daniel asked about her in return, Kanya's story emerged slowly, pieces offered carefully as if sharing them was difficult. She was from Chiang Rai in the north, had come to Hua Hin 2 years ago looking for work. Her father was sick diabetes that had gotten worse, medical costs that strained the family. She sent money home every month. Most of what she earned at the cafe kept barely enough for rent and food. She shared a small apartment with two other women who also worked service jobs in Hua Hin. The story touched something protective in Daniel. Here was this young woman working hard, supporting her family, struggling but maintaining dignity, treating him with genuine kindness even though he was just another foreign customer. She reminded him of the young servers he had employed at his restaurant, the ones who showed up every day, never complained, worked hard because they needed the money but still tried to do good work, still treated customers like human beings rather than obstacles. Over the following 2 weeks, Daniel's daily visits to Sunshine Cafe became the structure around which his days organized. He would arrive at 9 a.m., order breakfast, stay for an hour or two when the cafe was slow, talking with Kanya during the lulls between other customers. She began teaching him basic Thai phrases, correcting his pronunciation gently, laughing when his tones went wrong and changed meanings completely. She told him more about her family, her mother who managed the household, her younger siblings still in school, her father whose medical costs kept increasing. She showed him photos on her phone, a simple wooden house in rural Chiang Rai, rice fields behind it, family members smiling at the camera. Everything about her presentation suggested authenticity. She wasn't asking for money, wasn't performing distress, wasn't doing anything except working hard and being kind to a lonely foreign man who had made her cafe part of his daily routine. Daniel found himself thinking about Kanya between visits, looking forward to seeing her, feeling something warm in his chest when she smiled at him. He recognized he was developing feelings but told himself to be careful, that the age gap was significant, that she was Thai and he was foreign, and those differences created complications, that whatever he was feeling might not be reciprocated and he needed to protect himself from building fantasies. But the heart doesn't listen to such warnings when it's been lonely for years. In Thai culture, particularly for young women from poor regions, working service jobs in tourist areas, we learn to read foreign men with tremendous precision. We identify those who are lonely, who need attention more than they need sex, who want to believe they're valued for who they are rather than what they provide. These men are different from sex tourists. They want relationship, companionship, the feeling of being chosen. Kanya had learned this distinction. She understood that Daniel didn't want a prostitute or even a girlfriend experience. He wanted authentic connection, wanted to believe he had found someone special who saw his value. Providing this belief required different skills than bar work required. It meant being consistent, patient, gradually opening up while appearing reluctant to take advantage of his interest. It meant letting him fall in love slowly, naturally, in ways that felt like his choice rather than her manipulation. 6 weeks after his first visit to Sunshine Cafe, Daniel asked Kanya if she would have dinner with him outside her work. The question made him nervous. She might say no, might be uncomfortable, might reveal that her kindness was purely professional, and he had misread everything. But she said yes, quietly, with shy smile that made Daniel's heart race in ways he hadn't felt since he was much younger. Their first date was at a seafood restaurant near the beach. Kanya arrived wearing a simple dress rather than her cafe uniform, her hair down, looking younger and prettier than she looked at work. She was nervous too. Daniel realized playing with her napkin, not quite meeting his eyes, speaking more softly than usual. They talked for 3 hours. Kanya told him more about her childhood in Chiang Rai, about growing up poor but not understanding poverty because everyone around her was poor too, about moving to Hua Hin because wages were higher in tourist areas, about the guilt of being away from her family, but knowing she helped them more by sending money than she could by staying. Daniel told her about building his restaurant, about the pride of creating something from nothing, about the slow death of his marriage, about his daughter Emma who lived far away and called rarely, about arriving in Thailand not knowing what he was looking for but hoping he would recognize it when he found it. When he paid the bill, 800 baht, significant for her but manageable for him, Kanya thanked him genuinely but didn't perform excessive gratitude. This restraint felt like confirmation that she wasn't treating him as ATM, that she valued the time together rather than the meal he had purchased. They walked the beach afterward, talking easily now that initial nervousness had faded. Daniel wanted to hold her hand but didn't, afraid of moving too fast. When they reached her apartment building, Kanya surprised him by standing on her toes and kissing his cheek, quick and chaste, before saying goodnight and disappearing inside. Daniel walked back to his apartment feeling younger than 52, feeling possibility he hadn't felt in years, telling himself to be cautious but unable to suppress the hope blooming in his chest. They saw each other regularly after that first date. Dinners, walks on the beach, visits to temples in the surrounding area, day trips to nearby towns. Daniel would still visit Sunshine Cafe most mornings, but now their relationship existed outside those visits too, developing into something that felt more genuine than customer and waitress, more substantial than tourist and service worker. Kanya maintained appropriate pace. She didn't rush intimacy, didn't ask for money, didn't perform the eager availability that would have triggered Daniel's suspicions. Instead, she let him pursue her gradually, responding to his interest with careful reciprocation that made each small progression feel earned rather than purchased. 2 months into their relationship, Kanya invited Daniel to her apartment. It was tiny, one room shared with two other women, beds separated by curtains for minimal privacy, a shared bathroom down the hall. The poverty of her living situation made Daniel's chest tight with protective instinct. She lived like this while sending money home to her family, while working long hours at the cafe, while maintaining dignity and sweetness that seemed miraculous given her circumstances. They were intimate that night, and it felt tender rather than transactional. Kanya seemed genuinely nervous, genuinely present, genuinely affected by the closeness. Daniel held her afterward in the cramped bed, listening to traffic sounds through thin walls, feeling like he had finally found what he came to Thailand, seeking not just physical intimacy but emotional connection, not just companionship but partnership, not just escape from loneliness but arrival at something that resembled love. 3 months into their relationship, Kanya's father's condition worsened. She told Daniel through tears one morning at the cafe, showed him messages from her mother in Thai that he couldn't read but that clearly carried urgency. Her father needed surgery, something with his kidneys, complications from diabetes, doctors saying it couldn't wait much longer. The cost would be 90,000 baht, about $2,700 money. Her family didn't have money she couldn't save on her cafe wages. Daniel didn't hesitate. He transferred the money that afternoon, told Kanya to send it to her family immediately, refused when she said she would pay him back somehow. This wasn't loan. He said this was what people did for those they cared about, and he cared about her deeply. Kanya's gratitude was profound and seemed genuine. She cried, held him tightly, said she didn't deserve someone so kind, that she would never forget this, that she didn't know how to thank him properly. A week later, she showed him photos of her father in a hospital bed, looking weak but alive, recovering from surgery that had apparently saved his life. Daniel felt good about the money. It had served real purpose, had helped someone who needed help, had demonstrated to Kanya that he was reliable, that he took care of people he loved. The $2,700 represented only a small percentage of his savings. He could afford it, and the feeling it gave him was worth more than the money. But 2 weeks later, another crisis emerged. Kanya's family owed money on their house back payments on a loan they had taken years ago, creditors now threatening to take the property if they didn't pay 50,000 baht immediately. Losing the house would devastate her family, Kanya explained, would leave them homeless, would destroy her parents who had lived there for 30 years. This request made Daniel pause slightly. The timing felt close to the surgery expense. The amount was significant. But Kanya didn't pressure him, didn't demand, simply told him about the situation, and seemed resigned to the terrible outcome. This resignation, this absence of direct request, made Daniel want to help even more. He transferred 40,000 baht, told her to save the remaining 10,000 for other family emergencies. Over the next 3 months, emergency requests came regularly, but not constantly. Money for her younger sister's school fees, money to repair the roof of the family house, money for her mother's medication, money for a water pump that had broken. None of the individual amounts were enormous, but they accumulated. Daniel gave freely, partly from generosity, partly from the recognition that his financial support was securing Kanya's affection, ensuring she stayed with him, rather than returning to Chiang Rai or finding a different foreign man who might also be willing to support her family. By their 6-month anniversary, Daniel had sent approximately $12,000 to Kanya's family. His savings had decreased from 50,000 to 38,000, faster depletion than he had planned, but still manageable. And he had Kanya, beautiful, sweet Kanya, who cooked for him, stayed at his apartment most nights, talked about their future together, made him feel like the best years of his life might still be ahead rather than behind. During this period, Kanya began suggesting they open a small cafe together. Sunshine Cafe's owner was difficult, she said. Paid poorly, didn't appreciate her work. She had learned the business, knew how to manage a cafe, had ideas for making it successful. If Daniel helped with initial investment, they could open their own place, work together, build something that was theirs rather than working to make someone else wealthy. The idea appealed to Daniel tremendously. It addressed his need for purpose. He missed having a business, missed the structure that management provided. A small cafe in Hua Hin would be manageable, wouldn't require the brutal hours his Austin restaurant had demanded, could be something they built together that would keep them connected and provide income for both of them. They started planning seriously. Kanya found a small space available for rent, good location near the beach, but away from expensive main road, reasonable rent of 15,000 baht monthly. She calculated startup costs, kitchen equipment, tables and chairs, initial inventory, deposits and permits. Total needed, approximately $20,000. Daniel had the money. He had been saving it for undefined future, but this was future, concrete, hopeful, something they would build together. He agreed to fund the cafe, told Kanya they should put her name on everything since foreigners couldn't legally own businesses in Thailand, trusted that their relationship was solid enough that ownership papers were just formality rather than risk. The cafe opened 3 months later, smaller than Daniel's Austin restaurant but charming in its simplicity. They named it Sunshine Together Cafe, keeping callback to where they met but marking new beginning. Kanya handled the Thai-style cooking, Daniel managed finances and helped with service. Together, they created menu that balanced authentic Thai dishes with Western breakfast options for foreign customers. The work was hard but felt purposeful in ways Daniel had been missing. He woke early again but now woke beside Kanya, walked to the cafe together, worked side by side through morning rush and afternoon lull. They argued occasionally about management decisions, but resolved conflicts quickly, functioned as team in ways that reminded Daniel of the early years with Karen before the restaurant consumed everything good in their marriage. The cafe was moderately successful from the start. Regular Thai customers who appreciated Kanya's cooking, foreign expats who liked having new breakfast option, tourists who found them through online reviews. They weren't making significant profit after expenses, but they were sustaining themselves, building something together, creating the partnership Daniel had come to Thailand hoping to find. Kanya moved into Daniel's apartment fully now rather than splitting time between his place and her shared room. She brought her few possessions, took over half the closet space, made the apartment feel like shared home rather than temporary accommodation. They developed routines, shopping for cafe supplies together at the market, cooking dinner at home after closing the cafe, watching Thai television shows while Kanya explained the plots, falling asleep together with the comfort of people who had become essential to each other's daily existence. Daniel's daughter Emma called occasionally, asked how Thailand was going when he was coming back to visit. He told her he was doing well, had opened a small cafe, was seeing someone seriously. Emma's response was cautiously supportive, but Daniel could hear skepticism in her voice, concerned that her 52-year-old father was being naive about a relationship with a 24-year-old Thai woman, worried that he was spending his limited savings unsustainably, confusion about why he seemed content in Thailand when he had always insisted Austin was home. Daniel didn't know how to explain that Austin had never felt like home. That home was wherever you didn't feel lonely. That Kanya had given him something his marriage never had, the feeling of being chosen, being valued, being necessary to someone's happiness. These were feelings he couldn't articulate without sounding pathetic, so he kept conversations with Emma brief and superficial, changed the subject when she pushed about his plans. 7 months after meeting Kanya, Daniel's life in Thailand felt sustainable and genuine. His savings had decreased to $26,000 after funding the cafe and supporting Kanya's family. But this seemed like investment rather than loss. He had a business, a partner, a daily routine that provided structure and purpose. He was happier than he had been in years, maybe happier than he had ever been, living in a country where his modest money made him comfortable, where his age didn't make him invisible, where Kanya looked at him like he was valuable rather than merely tolerated. The only small concern was his visa situation. He had been doing border runs every 60 days, quick trips to Cambodia or Malaysia to exit and re-enter Thailand, but immigration officers were becoming less tolerant of this obvious gaming of tourist visa system. On his last border run, the officer had stamped his passport but added warning in Thai that he would need proper visa next time or would be denied entry. Daniel needed to figure out legal status, education visa, retirement visa, or marriage visa if he and Kanya decided to formalize their relationship. Marriage felt premature despite their closeness. But he started researching requirements, thinking about whether that was the direction they were heading. He didn't notice that Kanya had become more protective of her phone, that she spent increasing time messaging people she said were friends from Chiang Rai, that her request for family money had continued despite the cafe supposedly providing her income, that she had started taking days off from the cafe to handle personal business she didn't fully explain. He didn't notice because he didn't want to notice. Because noticing would require acknowledging possibility that what they had built together might not be what he believed it was, that the investment he had made might be more one-sided than he wanted to admit, that the love he felt so certainly might not be reciprocated with the same intensity or the same authenticity. Daniel found the messages on a Tuesday morning, purely by accident. Kanya was in the cafe's kitchen preparing lunch ingredients, her phone on the counter charging. A notification lit up the screen, a line message in English that Daniel saw before he could look away. "I sent the money, baby. When can I come visit you?" The sender's name was Mike, with an American flag emoji next to it. Daniel's stomach dropped. He knew he shouldn't look. He knew looking would violate Kanya's privacy. But his hands picked up the phone before his mind could stop them. Opened the unlocked screen, found the conversation with Mike. The messages went back 5 months, overlapping with their relationship. Mike was in California, working construction, sending Kanya money regularly. The conversation was affectionate, familiar, full of the same endearments Kanya used with Daniel. Mike called her my love. Kanya called him my heart. They talked about future plans, about Mike visiting Thailand soon, about eventually bringing Kanya to America once visa was arranged. Daniel's hands shook as he scrolled through the messages. Mike had sent her thousands of dollars over 5 months' payments for her father's surgery, for family house debt, for her sister's school fees. The same emergencies Kanya had told Daniel about, the same crises he had funded, apparently being funded by Mike simultaneously. And Mike wasn't the only one. Daniel found another thread, James from England, another Anders from Sweden. Each conversation followed similar pattern. Affectionate messages, requests for help with family emergencies, promises about future together, regular money transfers. Daniel sat down heavily on the cafe's chair, still holding Kanya's phone. The messages weren't just evidence of financial scam, they were evidence that everything he believed about their relationship was performance. The tenderness, the affection, the shy progression of their romance, the gratitude for his support, all of it had been skillfully performed while she managed multiple relationships simultaneously, extracting money from various foreign men who each believed they were special, each believed they were saving her, each believed her love was genuine. He scrolled further back in Mike's thread and found messages that predated Daniel's arrival in Thailand. Kanya had been managing Mike for over a year, probably had others before him, probably would continue finding new ones, as old sources stopped paying or became suspicious. This wasn't occasional opportunistic deception, this was systematic operation, carefully managed, skillfully executed. The cafe around him, the cafe he had funded believing it was their shared future, the cafe with Kanya's name on every legal document suddenly revealed itself as what it actually was. Not partnership but extraction device, not shared dream but method for securing his investment while maintaining her ability to continue working other foreign men. Daniel heard Kanya's footsteps coming from the kitchen. He set down her phone exactly where it had been, tried to arrange his face into something that didn't reveal the devastation spreading through his chest. She emerged carrying plates, smiled at him automatically, asked if he was okay because apparently his face hadn't successfully hidden anything. "I'm fine," Daniel said. "Just tired." Kanya sat down the plates and came to him, touched his face with concern that felt genuine, even though Daniel now knew it was probably performance. "You work too hard," she said. "You should rest this afternoon. I can manage cafe alone." The tenderness in her voice, the care in her touch, felt exactly the same as it had felt every day for 8 months. Nothing in her demeanor had changed. She was still the same. Kanya, sweet, attentive, seemingly devoted. The only thing that had changed was Daniel's knowledge that none of it was real, that he had been funding a performance so skilled he couldn't distinguish it from authenticity even now, even knowing the truth. Daniel waited until evening to confront Kanya. They were back at his apartment after closing the cafe, going through the familiar routine of cooking dinner together, the domestic intimacy they had developed over months. But now every gesture felt scripted to Daniel, every smile felt calculated, every touch felt like professional skill rather than genuine affection. After dinner, Daniel asked Kanya to sit down, said he needed to talk about something serious. Her face showed concern immediately, probably wondering if he was sick, or having money problems, or planning to return to America. "I saw the messages on your phone," Daniel said quietly. "Mike, James, Anders." Kanya's face went very still, not shocked, not panicked, just carefully neutral, like she was calculating her response. "You looked at my phone," she said finally. "Yes, I saw a message, and I looked. I'm sorry I violated your privacy, but I'm not sorry I found out the truth." "What truth?" Kanya asked, though her tone suggested she knew exactly what truth he meant. "That you've been working multiple foreign men simultaneously, taking money from all of us for the same family emergencies, telling all of us you love us while managing us like a business operation." Kanya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm, almost relieved. "You don't understand." "Then explain it to me. Explain how this isn't exactly what it looks like." Kanya stood, walked to the window, looked out at Hua Hin's evening lights. My father is really sick. My family really needs money. These things are true. But you've been collecting money from multiple men for the same needs. Yes, because one man is never enough. You send $2,000 for my father's surgery. Mike sent $3,000. James sent $1,500. Together, it is enough for surgery and to pay other debts. One man alone cannot save my family. I need many men. The honesty was stunning and somehow made it worse. She wasn't denying anything, wasn't apologizing, was simply explaining the mechanics of her operation with a matter-of-fact tone of someone describing ordinary business practice. What about us? Daniel asked. What about our relationship? The cafe? I do care for you, Kanya said, and her voice carried something that might have been genuine emotion. You are a kind man. You help me. You treat me well. I am grateful. Grateful isn't love. What is love? Kanya asked, turning to face him. Is love feeling, or is love taking care of someone? I take care of you. I cook, I clean, I work in cafe with you, I sleep beside you every night. This is not love? Not if you're doing it while telling 3 other men you love them too. Not if it's performance you could stop the moment the money stops. The money never stops, Kanya said quietly. That is the point. Western men come to Thailand with money. Thai women need money. We give you what you need, companion, someone who care for you, someone who make you feel young and valued again. You give us what we need, money, to help our family. Money to not be poor anymore. This is fair exchange. Fair exchange is fine if both people understand it's an exchange. You made me believe it was real. It is real, Kanya insisted. Everything I do for you is real. I really cook your food, really sleep beside you, really work in cafe. What is fake? The love. The future we were supposedly building together. The idea that you chose me for who I am rather than what I could provide. Kanya's face softened with something that looked like sympathy. Daniel, you are 50, 2 years old. You come to Thailand alone after divorce. You have money but not so much money. You are kind but not so handsome. In America, women your age don't want you. This is why you come here, because in Thailand, young women will be with you if you have money. You know this. All foreign men know this. You don't want to admit, but you know. The words hurt because they contain truth Daniel had been avoiding. He had come to Thailand because he had become invisible in America, because Thai women provided affection in exchange for financial security, because the transaction was softer here and therefore easier to pretend wasn't happening. I wanted to believe you were different, Daniel said. I wanted to believe what we had was genuine. Different from what? Different from other Thai women with foreign men? We are all the same, Daniel. Some are honest about the exchange, some pretend it is not exchange. I pretend because pretending makes you happy. You want to believe I love you for who you are. So I give you this belief. This is kindness, not cruelty. It's cruelty, Daniel said. It's cruelty to make someone believe something that isn't true. Then what do you want? Kanya asked. You want me to say I don't care for you at all? That everything was fake? I don't think you want to hear this. I think you want to hear that I do care, that you are special, that maybe I love you a little bit, even if not the same way you love me. I can tell you this if it makes you feel better. Daniel realized she was right. He did want to hear that some of it had been real, that he hadn't been completely fooled, that his judgment wasn't entirely broken. But wanting to hear it and believing it were different things. I want you to leave, Daniel said finally. Take your things and go. The cafe is in your name, so it's yours. I'm done. Kanya nodded slowly, seemingly unsurprised by this outcome. I will leave tonight. I am sorry it ended this way. You are a good man, Daniel. I hope you find what you are looking for. She packed her few belongings quickly, efficiently, like someone who had done this before. Within an hour, she was gone. leaving only the smell of her perfume in the apartment and the weight of 8 months of belief collapsing into recognition of what had actually happened. Daniel closed the cafe 3 weeks after Kanya left. Without her managing the kitchen and Thai language customer interactions, he couldn't sustain operations alone. The lease was in her name anyway. He had no legal claim to the business he had funded, had no way to transfer ownership even if he wanted to continue. He lost the $18,000 he had invested in startup costs. He lost the $12,000 he had sent to her family for emergencies that may or may not have been real. He lost 8 months of his life believing in a relationship that had been primarily transaction. In total, his Thailand adventure had cost him approximately $40,000 and left him with nothing except education about how the waitress trap worked and why it was more effective than the bar girl trap because it felt more authentic, developed more slowly, involved less obvious transaction, attracted men like Daniel who wanted to believe they were building genuine relationships rather than funding performances. His visa situation became problematic. He was on his last tourist visa, had been warned that further border runs would result in denied entry. Without the cafe or Kanya, he had no basis for retirement visa, education visa, or marriage visa. He needed to leave Thailand soon or become illegal overstay, risking arrest and permanent ban. Daniel stayed 3 more weeks, trying to process what had happened, walking Hua Hin's beaches at sunset alone, watching other foreign men with their Thai girlfriends and wondering how many were genuine and how many were variations of what he had experienced. The couples all looked happy, holding hands, laughing together, seeming to have found what Daniel thought he had found. Maybe some of them were genuine. Maybe some Thai women and foreign men built authentic partnerships that transcended economic desperation and loneliness. But Daniel suspected most were like his relationship with Kanya, mutual need dressed as love, financial support exchanged for companionship, transactions where both parties pretended the transaction wasn't happening because acknowledging it would destroy the comfort the arrangement provided. He booked a flight back to Austin. Emma was surprised when he called, asked what had happened, whether he was okay. Daniel gave her abbreviated version, the relationship hadn't worked out, the business wasn't sustainable, he needed to come home and figure out next step. He didn't tell her about Mike and James and Anders, didn't tell her about the spreadsheet of foreign men Kanya might or might not have been maintaining, didn't tell her that his romantic gamble in Thailand had revealed him to be exactly as naive as she had probably suspected. The flight back felt longer than the flight to Thailand had felt 8 months earlier. Daniel sat in economy seat, 52 years old, with $23,000 left from his original $98,000. No business, no partner, no plan beyond arriving in Austin and figuring out how to rebuild from this second failure. He thought about Kanya, wondered if she had continued working Mike and James, wondered if she had found new foreign men to replace him, wondered if she felt any guilt, or if she viewed the entire operation as simply practical survival that harmed no one. Foreign men got companionship they craved, Thai women got money they needed, everyone received exactly what they paid for, even if the price wasn't explicitly stated. He thought about his restaurant in Austin, the business he had built and abandoned, the marriage he had let die through neglect. He thought about the patterns in his life, the tendency to invest completely in things that eventually revealed themselves as hollow, the capacity to work hard for outcomes that didn't matter, the inability to distinguish genuine connection from transactional arrangement. Thailand hadn't changed anything fundamental about him. It had simply revealed in concentrated form the same mistakes he had been making his entire life, mistaking activity for purpose, mistaking proximity for connection, mistaking investment for love. Daniel returned to Austin diminished but educated. He found a cheap apartment, took a part-time job consulting for restaurant owners, tried to rebuild savings that would take years to restore. Emma visited occasionally, offering support that mixed concern with judgment, wondering why her father seemed incapable of sustainable choices. He didn't date. The thought of relationship, of opening himself to that vulnerability again, felt impossible. He had used up his capacity for belief, had exhausted his ability to trust that what someone showed him was what they actually felt. Back in Hua Hin, Sunshine Together Cafe closed within 2 months of Daniel's departure. Kanya moved to Phuket, found work at another cafe, began building relationships with other foreign men who visited regularly, who found her shy charm and family struggles compelling, who believed they were helping her rather than funding a systematic operation that had helped many men exactly the same way. Mike from California visited Thailand 4 months after Daniel left. He spent 2 weeks with Kanya in Phuket, took her to nice restaurants, gave her additional money for family emergencies, told her he loved her, and was working on visas so she could come to America. She smiled and said she loved him too. Said she couldn't wait to start their life together, kissed him goodbye at the airport with tears that were probably genuine in the moment, even if the underlying situation wasn't what Mike believed it to be. James from England sent money monthly for 2 years before finally visiting Thailand and discovering Kanya had moved without telling him, that her phone number was disconnected, that she had disappeared as thoroughly as if she had never existed. He lost approximately $15,000 and wrote angry posts on expat forums warning other men about Thai women, about scams, about the impossibility of genuine relationships in Southeast Asia. Anders from Sweden simply stopped sending money after 6 months, deciding the relationship wasn't progressing despite his investment, that Kanya's requests had become too frequent, that something felt wrong. Even if he couldn't identify exactly what, he lost less than the others because he set boundaries earlier, because his loneliness was perhaps less profound, or his hope less desperate. The Waitress Trap continues operating throughout Thailand, in Hua Hin and Chiang Mai and Phuket, and dozens of smaller towns where young Thai women work service jobs and develop relationships with lonely foreign men who believe their situation is special, their woman is different, their relationship is genuine. Some of these relationships probably are genuine. Most exist in the ambiguous space between authentic connection and economic transaction, both parties receiving what they need, while not examining too closely whether what they're giving is what they believe they're giving. For men like Daniel, the trap is particularly effective because it develops slowly, doesn't feel like trap, involves women who seem normal, rather than explicitly commercial. Kanya wasn't a prostitute, she was a waitress who happened to have multiple foreign boyfriends supporting her simultaneously. The moral distinction was significant to men who wanted to believe they were in relationships rather than paying for services, who wanted to believe Thai women chose them for personal qualities rather than financial necessity. The trap works because loneliness makes men willing to ignore warning signs, because hope makes them interpret ambiguous signals optimistically, because the desire for genuine connection makes them believe that sufficient investment will transform transaction into authentic relationship. Daniel had fallen completely into the trap because he needed to believe that 52 wasn't too old for romance, that his money could purchase not just companionship but actual love, that somewhere in Thailand a young woman would value him for who he was rather than what he could provide. The education cost him $40,000 and 8 months of his life. Other men pay more, some lose everything, end up broke and stranded in Thailand, become the cautionary tales that new arrivals ignore because they believe their situation is different. Some pay less because they learn quickly or set boundaries earlier or get lucky with women who are more honest about the exchange. The industry continues because supply meets demand. Thai poverty creates young women who need money. Western loneliness creates older men who need affection. Thailand provides infrastructure where these needs can meet and pretend to be romance rather than transaction. As long as Western men age into invisibility in their home countries, as long as Thai women struggle in poverty with limited options, as long as both parties need to believe they're in relationships rather than arrangements, the Waitress Trap will continue catching men like Daniel who came to Thailand seeking love and found skilled professionals who gave them exactly what they paid for while making them believe payment had nothing to do with it. 3 years after returning from Thailand, Daniel had rebuilt his savings to $40,000 and had learned to live with loneliness as permanent condition rather than problem to be solved. He no longer believed in the possibility of authentic connection, no longer trusted his ability to distinguish genuine affection from skillful performance, no longer thought about Thailand except as expensive mistake that had taught him the limits of what money could purchase. Sometimes he wondered about Kanya, whether she had accumulated enough money to stop working foreign men, whether she felt any guilt about Daniel and Mike and James and Anders and however many others there had been. He suspected she didn't, that from her perspective, she had provided services that satisfied customers, that she had been honest about her family's needs, even if not honest about managing multiple relationships simultaneously, that Western men who came to Thailand with money got exactly what they should have expected, even if they wanted to believe they were getting something more. The waitress trap had caught him perfectly, because it was designed to catch men exactly like him, lonely, romantic, financially comfortable but not wealthy, wanting to believe in second chances and authentic connection and the possibility that moving to Thailand could solve problems that were actually internal rather than geographical. He had paid for the lesson and learned it thoroughly, which was more than many men did. Some returned to Thailand repeatedly, each time believing the next woman would be different, each time discovering that the trap remained effective because loneliness remained constant and hope remained resilient even in the face of repeated disappointment. Daniel never returned to Thailand. The country remained in his memory as both possibility and warning, a place where his money had made him temporarily valuable, where a young woman had performed love skillfully enough to make him believe it was real, where he had learned that what you can purchase and what you actually need are often entirely different things, and confusing them costs more than money alone. If this story revealed how loneliness creates vulnerability, how hope blinds us to manipulation, how the waitress trap works through patience and performance rather than explicit transaction, I invite you to subscribe. There are more stories about men who believed their situation was special, about women who learned to monetize foreign loneliness, about the industry where romance and transaction wear each other's costumes until no one can tell them apart. Thank you for listening to this uncomfortable truth.